I'm a developer, but I love writing tests. I'm here to talk about the FT's HTML5 web app and automating that using Webdriver and the problems that I found doing that. We've got a web app we pulled out of the iTunes store, basically. The reason being was that we were going to be charged 30% of our subscription fees to stay in the store. So the motivation was to write an HTML5 app that you could write once and run anywhere. So it was developed against WebKit with the WebSQL database. The idea was that you could run it on a iPad, iPhone, Android, Windows 8, Kindle Fire. It runs in several modes. I'll just click play actually, this would be interesting, I think. It runs in several modes. So basically you can go to a web browser, mobile Safari, you can go to app.ft.com, you can use this site there, you can use the app there. You can then bookmark it if you want to your home screen. That gives you a larger database that you can then use offline if you're on the train or tube or something like that. And then for Android, we've sort of got a similar experience where we wrap the HTML5 app in a native wrapper, custom native wrapper. So on the face of it, the fact that it's an HTML5 app would make it seem easy to automate using Selenium and Webdriver, but in practice it's a lot more difficult because you've got one HTML page and a bunch of JSON data coming in. You've got touch swipe gestures to deal with. You've got this offline mode where we use local storage and WebSQL, small database, big database mode, depending on what how you've bookmarked the application and everything, and various other features in there as well. Things like if you returned the app within 30 minutes, you end up on the same article that you were reading. If it's past 30 minutes, then it starts over again. We also need to interact with iframes for the registration side of things on the top left, and sometimes it pops out to a browser window as well for things like adverts and if you're editing your portfolio and things like that. So it actually turns out that it's quite a complicated application to test. So there's a big black hole for us with the automation side of things. We do a lot of manual testing on the app. We do a lot of regression testing, which is manual on the app. It takes ages to do. A couple of testers doing this solidly all the time. So what I've tried to do is basically use Webdriver and the iPhone driver with some various other stuff sitting around it, so Charles Proxy and the network link conditioner on the Mac to simulate slow bandwidth and stuff like that, and then use that to drive iPad and iPhone simulators, and then tethered iPhone, iPad, and then also Android as well. Now we've just failed completely with the Android, unfortunately, because we use a custom wrapper. We can't automate through the Webdriver, iPhone driver, web UI view. On top of that, in order to actually write the tests and stuff, it's very difficult to debug the app on the iPad, so we've managed to get it working in Safari because it's basically the same browser, WebKit and WebSQL database, with iPad user agent switch and the developer tool, so you can find the locators and stuff like that. You can write those into the test and then you can run the test on a simulated or real device. We also use Ware, which is a remote debugger. So that uses the Chrome debugger on the desktop, and it attaches itself to the application running in the browser, so you can then sort of break the test and inspect it and stuff like that. So again, in principle, it all sounds great, and you can, there's these sort of tools available that you can set up all of this workflow and everything. Now the problem comes with actually using the iPhone driver itself. So we ditched the Android driver altogether at the moment. We might come back to that later on. But the iPhone driver, the way that it works is that it doesn't actually interact directly with mobile Safari or with the home screen app. It creates its own web UI view on the home screen and uses that to drive the app, which is fine. It's an HTML5 app, so we can open it in web UI view. But things with the driver don't work properly. So touch swipe, we just can't simulate these swipe gestures or anything like that. I've been told by the developers that the app was actually developed by a third party. We've now acquired that third party. I've been told by the developers that they're using mouse gestures now, so it's possible it might actually be able to simulate the swipe gestures. But as yet, that's unresolved. Click is an even stranger one. You would have thought that you'd be able to click on the app. It seems to work fine for normal mobile sites, but for anything that's a little bit kind of more complicated than that, you cool click and it just doesn't do anything at all. So what I've done there is actually used the iPhone driver, Webdriver's execute script to hook into the page itself using jQuery and a CSS selector, and then simulate a fire an event from there to do the click. Overlays are fine, so that's the login overlay. It's just a web element. We can interact with that, no problem at all. There's an outstanding bug in the iPhone driver with iframes, so that's unresolved as well. We can't interact, can't switch between new windows and new iframes. And then offline network simulation is basically just pulling the plug out at the moment and using it without a network connection that way on a local machine. And then big DB mode. So some other things we've had to do is interact. We've had to change the application itself to be able to handle the tests. By forcing it into big database mode, that kind of thing. So, all in all, it's probably at the moment, because it's just a sort of rough. There's only a few tests and stuff in here. It's more of a proof of concept than anything else. I think we'll probably be able to get to about maybe 50-60% coverage if we're lucky, using just Webdriver. And then extend it out with some other tools as well. So this is just a sort of an anatomy of the test setup. We've got a page object pattern here and then the tests here. This is where we're using the execute script, so that's actually hooking into JavaScript method calls within the application itself. Normal WebDriver commands like send keys and stuff like that, if that's okay, that works fine. And then we've got the JUnit assertions and stuff here as well. So again, I said it's just basically a proof of concept. I'd like to extend this out a bit further, so we'll look at putting some of these devices on the grid, maybe starting to run these tests in parallel, build it into a continuous integration environment. And then this is the other thing as well. I mean, if anyone's got any experience with using these tools as well, I'd be really interested to talk to you, because it's a sort of bitmapped-based image recognition. Harry's shaking his head here. So, okay, nobody's using that, that's fine. Or maybe some other automation tool as well, if iPhone driver doesn't suit. Now, I've got a quick demo of stuff working. Here. So this will be against the simulator. This iPhone driver is just downloaded from the Selenium Subversion repository. So that's the iPad simulator running there, and then I've got the tests here. And I'm just going to run those. So there's add to home screen up there. That's just popped up. Obviously, we can't interact with that once it's home screened. But you can see it does work to a certain degree, and we can get some valuable feedback from it as well, which is a good thing. And that's basically it. Okay, so again.